Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're talking about Claude Opus 4.7, Anthropic's newest and most capable publicly available AI model. We'll cover what's new, what's improved, and exactly what you need to do if you're a developer migrating from the previous version. Claude Opus 4.7 is not just a small update. It's a significant step forward in several areas, especially coding, vision, and long-running agentic tasks. Anthropic released it on April 16, 2026, and it's available across all Claude products, the API, and cloud services. Let's start with what makes Opus 4.7 stand out. The biggest gains are in three areas: software engineering, vision, and agentic performance. For software engineering, early testers saw Opus 4.7 resolve 3 times more production tasks than its predecessor on a widely used coding benchmark. On another benchmark called Cursor Bench, it cleared 70% compared to Opus 4.6's 58%. That's a meaningful jump. On the vision side, Opus 4.7 now accepts images up to 2,576 pixels on the long edge. That's more than 3 times the resolution supported by previous Claude models. This makes a big difference for tasks like reading technical diagrams, analyzing chemical structures, and understanding screenshots at full resolution. For agentic work, meaning tasks where the AI runs on its own for a long time and calls tools, Opus 4.7 is noticeably better at staying on track. It has fewer errors per tool call, better error recovery, and what testers describe as loop resistance, which means it doesn't get stuck repeating itself. Companies testing it reported that it could work coherently for hours on complex problems. Real-world feedback backs this up. Notion said it saw a 14% improvement over Opus 4.6, with fewer tokens and a third of the tool errors. XBOW tested it on a visual accuracy benchmark and saw 98.5% compared to 54.5% for Opus 4.6. Intuit described the combination of speed and precision as potentially game-changing. These are strong signals that this isn't just incremental progress. Now let's talk about the pricing. Despite all these improvements, the price stays exactly the same: $5 per million input tokens and $25 per million output tokens. That's the same as Opus 4.6. So you're getting more capability at the same cost, which is a good deal. Anthropic also launched several new API features alongside Opus 4.7. The first is a new effort level called X-High, which stands for Extra High. Previously you had low, medium, high, and max. Now X-High sits between high and max, and Anthropic recommends it as the best setting for most coding and agentic use cases. The second new feature is task budgets, currently in public beta. This lets you tell the model how many tokens it has for an entire agentic loop, and the model will pace its work accordingly. Think of it like giving the AI a time limit. It'll prioritize what matters and wrap up gracefully before running out. Now let's get into the migration guide, which is especially important for developers using the API. The good news is that Opus 4.7 is backward compatible in many ways, but there are a handful of breaking changes you must know about. Breaking change number 1. Extended thinking is gone. If you use the parameter thinking type enabled with budget tokens, that no longer works on Opus 4.7 and returns an error. Instead, you use what's called adaptive thinking, combined with the effort parameter. Adaptive thinking is actually off by default, so if you don't set it explicitly, the model runs without thinking, which matches the old default behavior of Opus 4.6. Breaking change number 2. Sampling parameters are removed. That means temperature, top P, and top K no longer work on Opus 4.7. If you try to set them to non-default values, you'll get a 400 error. The recommendation is to simply remove them from your requests and use prompting instead to guide the model's behavior. Breaking change number 3 is about the tokenizer. Opus 4.7 uses a new tokenizer, and the same input text will now use anywhere from 1.0 to 1.35 times as many tokens, so up to 35% more. This affects your costs and your max token settings. You'll want to recheck your budgets and make sure your max tokens parameters have enough headroom. There's also a change in how thinking content is displayed. Previously, Opus 4.6 returned summarized thinking content by default. In Opus 4.7, thinking content is omitted by default, meaning your app might see a long pause before output begins if it's streaming responses. If you want thinking summaries back, you need to explicitly set the display field to summarized in the thinking configuration. Beyond the breaking changes, there are also several behavioral shifts to be aware of. Opus 4.7 is more literal in how it follows instructions. If you told it to do something to one item, it won't automatically assume you want the same done to all similar items. This is actually great for structured pipelines. but it may require you to update some prompts that relied on the model inferring your intent. The model is also more direct in its tone, less warm, more opinionated, fewer emoji than Opus 4.6. On the agentic side, Opus 4.7 tends to spawn fewer sub-agents by default, and it uses tools less frequently, relying more on its own reasoning. In most cases, this gives better results. But if your workflow depends on heavy tool usage or lots of sub-agents, you'll want to raise the effort level or add explicit instructions. One more thing on behavior. Opus 4.7 now has real-time cybersecurity safeguards built in. Requests that involve prohibited security topics may be automatically refused. If you're doing legitimate security work like penetration testing or red teaming, Anthropic has a cyber verification program you can apply to for reduced restrictions. Let's wrap up with the migration checklist. First, update your model name to Claude Opus 4.7. Second, remove temperature, top P, and top K from your requests. Third, replace extended thinking with adaptive thinking and add an effort parameter. Fourth, remove any assistant message prefills. Fifth, audit your max token settings to account for the new tokenizer. Sixth, if you send images, rebudget for higher token usage at full resolution. And finally, review your prompts for the behavioral changes, especially around response length, tone, and instruction following. If you want to go deeper, check out Anthropic's official migration guide, link in the description. That's it for today. See you in the next one.